This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Announce the time that it starts.
We're going to announce the time also. Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome all our Torah Anytime viewers. Everybody, every woman is invited to join us at 1601 Quentin Road at 8 p.m. on Thursdays. I'd like to welcome a special guest from Florida and from Egypt. So, long flight, but we very much appreciate you guys joining us. But look how you see it. It actually works. That when you actually say the location, it actually brings people in. So look at that. The advertisement does work. The people from the advertising world were right after all. Okay, I guess there's a reason why it's $1 billion industry, probably $1 trillion industry. But in any case, we welcome everybody. We're always welcome to join our new. What would be the right word? People, I guess, humans. Always like to join our new humans. Might as well always go safe with that. So we are continuing this week. Oh, we're learning tonight the Fuash Tamatu Yecheskel Ben Tzila. So we're continuing this week from last week's topic, which we spoke about the man. So just a very brief recap. That the man fell in the desert. Okay, caught up. Now let's start. So now. No, the truth is, I have to give a little bit, maybe a 10 more second, recap. When the man fell in, the Jewish people, when they went to the desert, they ran out of food. They didn't have any more food left over. There's heavenly food that came down from heaven and landed near the Jewish people's encampment. Now, the Jewish people went and they gathered this man. And they were not able to leave anything over till the next day. They had to finish everything over that night. One of the miraculous things that happened is that there was so much man that for example, the first time, every time that man fell, there was enough food to last the Jewish people for 2,000 years. The question that is asked is, why did God put, number one, why did God put so much food? Number two, why didn't God do it? Why did God have to do it that every single day was like another miracle? It was another thing. It could have been on a monthly basis. Every Rosh Chodesh, more things fall from heaven. Whatever it is, pick a day. Why did it have to be every single day? So, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was asked this question by his students, and he answered that there was a king. And this king went and gave his allowance to his son on a yearly basis. Now, when this prince gets his allowance on a yearly basis, how often is he going to meet the king? Once a year to get the allowance. So the king realized and said, listen, if I want to have more of a connection with my son, I have to split up the allowance. Instead of giving him a big chunk of money once a year or once a month, or whatever the scenario was, let me give it to him in a more frequent basis. This way he has to come over to me more frequent. When I was in Israel, in yeshiva over there, there was the parents that worked this way also. So when they went and they wanted to send their kids money, they didn't send their kids money like a big chunk for the rest of the year for two reasons. Number one, the kid, I guess especially the crowds that would just finish it within 1 month and be like, what? This was for the whole year? I thought this was just 1 month. But the real reason is that the parents want to have a connection. If you want to have a connection with a child, so if let's say you send your son or your daughter money every week, so every week they're calling to say good Shabbos or whatever. They're calling just to say hi. By the way, while I have you on the phone, do you by any chance deposit the money that we have? Very, very, very particular on that. They remember all of that. So it's better, if you want to build a connection, it's better to give the money, less money more frequently than more money less frequently. And the interesting thing is this is how it works also in tzedakah. If you have the option to go and give somebody, let's say you're giving one organization your money. You're giving one organization money. Is it better to go and give it one chunk at a time and be finished with it? Or is it better to give that same chunk but break it off into daily or monthly? There's credit card fees, so we have to be very smart about this. But is it better off to give it break clear? So from the organization side, it's better that you give them one-time shot. This way they know that they got it and they could go away.
It's a better question, $100 for one person or $1,000?
That is a better question, but that's an easier question. I specifically asked this question because that question is I already spoke about before, but that question is also good that you brought up. What is it better to give? If you have 100 beggars lined up and you have 100 single dollar bills, for whatever godforsaken reason you have that, right? You just came from the arcade. Okay, and you have these crisp mint arcade dollar bills, and you have an option. Do you give it to the one that you decide, the one who looks the poorest, the one that you feel your heart breaks for, or do you go and give one to each and every single person? So as a Jewish heart, generally speaking, you want to make everybody happy, so you're going to give one person every dollar. You're just going to go one, da, 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 da. But halakhically speaking, it's a good question. What is it better? Is it better to give a whole boatload of money to one person, or is it better to spread it out? So the answer is not really represented on the taker side, but it's really more on the giver side. The more that you give, the more that you become a giver. So from their aspect, we're not even talking about, but from your aspect, it is better for you to go and constantly give money to other people because that changes who you are as a person. So even when it comes to general charity, even if you're giving to one organization, so this question makes it even stronger. That's when we said you're giving it to 100 people. But let's say you're giving it to one organization. Is it better to give it all? I'm not saying to do monthly payments, which is a great idea in general to do. I'm saying, what about if you go and you have to go and take out your credit card every single time? Some people memorize a credit card. Very scary, right? When I saw that the first time, I was like, whoa, that's, it was a 16-digit number, and the security code, and the expiration date. Some heavy-duty shoppers. But if you have to go and take out your credit card every single time and then punch it in and then click, the donate button, what would you think would be better? Giving it to one organization, is it better to give it in one shot, or is it better to break it up? So in the same idea, in the same thought process, it's better to break it up. Why? For your perspective, it's better to break it up because you're going to end up learning to give more. The more that you give, the more that you break your habit of being stingy, and the more that you're going to be able to continuously give. If you're a type of person that has a very hard time with giving, this is something that you should work on. Take a bunch of small change and just practice giving. It's just like a muscle exercise. So when God gave the man to the Jewish people, God wanted to go and build a relationship with the Jewish people. Yeah?
It's like more about tzedakah, but could I, let's say, the other week I was in Manhattan, and I saw this homeless guy, and I gave him. Does that count too?
That's an interesting question regarding giving a Gentile charity. There's a lot of different opinions on how you're supposed to do it and why you're supposed to do it. And generally speaking, what I usually tell people to do, don't empty your pocketbook on, on
like a quarter.
That's fine. That you should do. In general, what I do is I try specifically when there's a Gentile ask money, I specifically try to give them money, even something like $1 or something like that. It was what week is this? What month are we in? What year? Oh, hold on a second. Either was this week or the past 4 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere happened. Very recently. That's recently for me. No, it was this week. I'm pretty sure it was this week. I was going to the synagogue. I was going to pray, and as I'm walking down over there, I see a guy. Let me give a little of an introduction on this story. When you speak to when you speak to a lot of people, you get to understand where they're coming from and what their situation is. So if you ever, and I hope you don't, but if you ever speak to drug addicts, you get to see by their face that they're drug addicts. You could sort of tell. So I was walking to the synagogue, and I see a guy very dazed, confused, glossy. He had all the signs and symptoms of he's on something. And he's walking right past by, and he sat down right by he walked up someone's driveway and sat down on there was a little step over there. Which right away, in Brooklyn, you don't do that. You sit down outside the driveway. You never go inside the driveway. That's whatever. For those in Brooklyn, people know you stay away from people's properties. So right away that treatment started. Then this was the house right next to the shul, right next to the synagogue. I keep on walking, and I'm walking right in front of the synagogue, and then there's another guy, no kippah, no tzitzit, no nothing, comes over to, not that it says anything nowadays, but he comes over to me, the same facial expression, couldn't concentrate, and he was he asked me for some money. So I had a few thoughts that came to my mind. Number one is this guy and I actually asked him, I'm like, are you on anything? I goes, whatever, don't do what I do, but this is what I do, right? So yeah, don't do this. But he was literally walking down to the steps to the synagogue, and I was standing by the entrance, walking in. And I see him like stumbling over, so I decided let me wait by the entrance and let me see what happens. And he's like walking down the stairs, and then he's like, and then finally his eyes meet mine. He's like, oh, he's like, you have like money? And I realized he was asking for charity. So the first question I was like, are you on anything? And his response was, I just want to end it all, which was not the question that I asked, if you understand. So we did have a little bit of a conversation, but then he asked for money. So the question was, what I thought about, now if a drug addict comes over to you, right? If somebody comes over to you with a needle hanging out of his arms and be like, hey, I'm so hungry, I haven't eaten in a long time, I need like $10, for a meal, can I have some money? You don't give that person money because that person's going to go and use that money for drugs and whatever it is, the abuse that he's using, so it's better not to give those type of people money. Now, this is a person that's very out of it, obviously, not in a good state of mind. I actually asked him if he wants to go to the hospital, if I wanted to call, whatever. We went through like the whole criteria that I needed to go through in these situations. But I asked him, I said, he didn't want anything. So now my question was, do I give this guy money? Because I know he's not going to use it for the right thing. But at the same point in time, there was a synagogue full of people over there. Now the last thing that you want to do before praying mincha is have a drug addict walk into the synagogue and do whatever drug addicts do. So in my mind, it was better, and it was better for me to give him some money to get him to go away, as opposed to let him linger around over there, and who knows what will cause afterwards. But in general, you don't give drug addicts money. Now again, how do you know that there's a drug addict? Don't just assume people are drug addicts. In New York, everybody looks like a drug addict. It's not necessarily a situation. If you're familiar with it, then you'll understand it, but otherwise, don't delve into it. But in general, in those type of situations, you don't give money. But otherwise, a little bit of money, it's always good. It gives a Kiddush Hashem. I'll tell you I think I said this story before. I was in the subway, unfortunately once, and I was in the subway, and there was somebody that was going and was collecting. You guys just went to the subway?
Oh, no. She doesn't approve of the subway.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely not. You have to shower in Purell afterwards. So,
My dad goes.
and then going to the mikvah. Oh, whatever. It's a long story.
My dad goes like every day and like complains about like this.
Yeah, no, it is a problem. I had to go very often there, but Baruch Hashem now I don't have to. But I used to. I had plenty of stories in my subway stories. But one of the stories was what? I don't know. I say what I've heard from Rabbi Fishel Schachter. I like to say stories. I don't like to be in stories. So
That hasn't really been working out for you.
no, whatever. But Baruch Hashem, can't complain. So there was a beggar that goes on the trains. Now this is another whole question in its entirety. I don't know why we are speaking about it. Hopefully we'll get back to the man.
Because I asked about it.
Yeah. So we'll wrap up this and we'll go back to the man. Now when there is a law, I don't know if you're supposed to, whatever, it's, you're not supposed to give charity on the subway, people are not supposed to ask. I'm not exactly sure on the baseline, on the details of the law, but there is a problem for people begging on the subway. It shouldn't be happening. So I was sitting on the subway. It was one of those times, those rare times you're able to catch a seat, and I was sitting on the subway, and when I was sitting on the subway, there was somebody who was going around collecting, charity. Now, you look at me, I'm very obviously a Jew. I don't try to hide it. I am as Jew as a Jew. I'm a very Jewy person, right? So I'm all Jew all around. And I got my kippah. I think I was reading a sefer or something. This guy's going and collecting something. He's collecting money. So I look at him. I think for a second. I take out $1. I give it to him. End of story. I go back into the book. Now, the train on my side was pretty empty. It was just me. I don't know if you guys ever seen to this train. So the new trains, everything, whatever, relatively speaking, there is a bench. There's a very long bench, and it's split by a pole that you could hold on.
Yeah.
So I was on one side of the pole, and there was another person on the other side of the pole. That other person took up that whole section, right?
Yes.
May God bless her soul, right? Took up the whole section, and I gave the charity, and then
He sat next to you?
no, he didn't sit next to me, but she was over there, and then I feel the whole train like tilting up. I'm just kidding. So she leans over, and she's like, "I like that," and I'm like, "Cool, thanks." And then she went on. She said, and she's like, I like it that you have a Jewish person gives another person, charity. And she didn't give the guy any money. But she was very happy that I gave, I, a Jew, gave somebody else money. Now, that is something that we call a Kiddush Hashem. Now, is it worth $1 to do a Kiddush Hashem? For sure it's worth $1. So in many situations, when you're to do a Kiddush Hashem with that money, it's very, very important to do so. Regarding the halachic ideas and ramifications on giving, there's a whole, halachic, discussion on it. But in general, when it comes to Kiddush Hashem, it's one of the most, the greatest mitzvah that you could do. Okay, so now, going back to our topic at hand, which is the man. Well, the truth is, it's really on topic, because the man is really about panasah. Panasah is really all based on charity. If you give more charity, you get more panasah. So we're on topic. We never went off topic. So stop saying that I went off topic. Why are you looking at me like that? Okay, so now moving along. The way that it works with man is that when you go and the day is over and you finish your man, you have to have everything gone. There can be nothing left over until the next day. Meaning that you have to go to sleep with nothing in your cabinets, nothing in your bank account, nothing, and you're left only based on your faith in God that you're going to have food rain down from heaven tomorrow. Now this is a very, very high level of faith. In fact, the sages tell us that if somebody goes and somebody has food for today and he's worried about food for tomorrow, that person is known as someone who has little faith. Now obviously this is a very, very high level. But look at the level that the Jewish people reached in the going on in the desert right before Matan Torah. They gave everything up every single night. Can you imagine that? They were not allowed to.
But they're also on such a level that they didn't have to have any shadows. They were like, all they have to do is just have faith and you're good.
So you're saying that that's true after the 30th year. What about the first night? That was very difficult. The first night you have enough food to last you for 2,000 years.
Everybody has to have but you have to do your shadows, right?
So you're right, Hashem had all this miracle, and you're right, you do have to do all the ishtadut. But what happens when a miracle happens to you? Are you all of a sudden like, God, I am here for you. I'm ready to fast for 3,000 years. I'm ready to do all the mitzvot. Or are you going to be like, thank you, God, on a good day, and then you go back to your regular life? How does it work? Every single person has miracles that happen to them, if not daily, monthly. Miracles. I'm talking about miracles. Now, do we change it? But we see these miracles, not possible. I've spoken to people, and I've said, do you accept miracles? Do you accept miracles? No, only Visa, MasterCard.
I changed when something like scary happened. I freaked out, and then I took steps to
That's very good.
grow.
But not everybody is like that. Some people will go and will have a miracle happen to them, and then they'll continue living their life. Or they will disregard that miracle. They will, leave it as whatever, like as coincidence. And some people wish miracles would happen, but it doesn't really, like somebody, let's not call him a Jew, but somebody, it misses a flight. Because he was lazy, he was late, whatever, he missed a flight. What is his first thought? That plane is going to crash. And there's a small part of him, or her, that kind of wants that plane to crash. Be like, you see? Look what God did to me. I went and I missed the flight because 6 months ago I gave a quarter to the charity, and then this is what had happened. You see? And this is what happened. So, in a way, but no, sometimes you're, a lazy person, you didn't go on time, whatever, there's different reasons, and no, the plane shouldn't crash just because it'll make you feel good that God is watching out over you. You don't have to go and see these crazy miracles in order to observe God in your life. If you're able to open your eyes, you'll see God in the small details. The bigger the person, the smaller details you're able to see God. The smaller the person, they need bigger things in order to see God. Everything is this thingy. Yeah, thank you. So, okay, so now one of the reasons we said that the man fell every single day as opposed to a monthly or a yearly basis was because God wanted to have a connection with the Jewish people. Now imagine you just ate, and now there's no more food left over. Before you go to sleep, be like, dear God, it's me again. Yeah, I know, I speak to you every night, whatever. But please, can we have some food tomorrow? You build a connection. When you're building a connection, this is what God wants. This is what happens on a daily basis. But there was another reason that God also put the man to fall every single day as opposed to a yearly or monthly basis. And that is, imagine you would be traveling in the desert and you have to schlep around 40 years worth of food. You know how difficult that is?
Yeah.
God said, listen, don't worry about it. Wherever you go, I'll send it for you. And some people don't think about it, but it happens nowadays. Some people need to go.
Uber Eats.
Yeah, there you go. You had Uber delivery. Uber God by Uber Heaven, right? It comes directly to your doorstep. You don't have to tip. You don't have to rate. You don't have to do anything. It comes straight to you. All depends on your religious, observance. So, this concept that God was taking care of you no matter where you went. Now, and nowadays, people get upset. I understand God is like a panasada, and then you move or you're traveling. It would be very difficult if you would have built up a business in this particular area, and then you moved to a different area, you wouldn't have been able to do it. So God is taking care of you on a daily basis. Some people God's taking on a yearly. Whatever it is, God is taking care of you. That's one lesson that you learn from here. One of the many lessons. Additionally, one of the things that we learned over here is that livelihood is depending on your religious observance. If the more that you are connected to spirituality, the easier and simpler and the tastier that the man came for you. The less that you are, the harder, more difficult, and less tastier the man was to you. So everything happened in relation to how religious you are and how connected you are to spirituality. And this is a huge, huge lesson. There's a skula that we read this section of the Torah every single morning for Panasah. You want Panasah, you read this section of the Man. A lot of the Sidurim, a lot of the prayer books have this after Shachrit prayers. They have this section written down in the, after you finish praying, you have this section written down. Now, a lot of people read it for Skula for Panasah. Now, one of the things that you learn from here is that, you have a question? So give me one second. Let me finish this thought. So one of the things that you learn from here is that when you're connected to, the more connected you are to spirituality, the more connected you are to God, the more God is going to take care of your needs. Now, God is going to take care of everybody's needs. And it depends on the different variables that come into play over here. But the more that you're connected to God, the more easier and simpler that you're going to see that. Now, there's a slew of questions that we could ask on this, and maybe if we have time. Is that what you were going to ask? Let's leave that for afterwards, and if we have time, we could go and speak about that. So, originally, when the man fell down, the people were very nervous. They said, listen, the rich people have a lot of servants, they have a lot of power, they have a lot of family members. They could collect a lot more man than we can, than the simple people, than the poor people. It's not fair. But one of the things that they realized is no matter how you collected the man, if you are aggressive and you just started collecting from the early morning and collected till the very end of the day, or until the man melt, at the end of the day, everybody had left over no more than an omer measurement per person. That's all that you had left over. So the wealthy, the poor, the aggressive, the less aggressive. I don't want to say lazy because that's in a different category. The less aggressive. They all were left over with the same amount of man that they were supposed to have, which is an omer. One of the lessons over here is that regardless of where you are in life, after 120, you're going 6 feet under. And 6 feet under, everybody goes in the same way. 6 feet under the ground. No, you're buried. Yeah.
Okay. No,
we didn't get that dark yet. It's just the beginning of the class. Give me some time.
But it's not all the same.
Burial spots are all the same.
Where the person goes afterwards isn't the same.
Oh, that's talking about spirituality. But regarding to how much money you make, you can't take it down into the grave with you. If there's someone a gazillionaire and there's someone that's a negative gazillionaire, they're both getting buried the same way. The same place, dressed the same way. They're in the tachachim. They're all in the same place. You cannot change anything in the next world. So regardless of whatever you gather in this world, you're left with an omel. You're left with whatever it is that you're supposed to get, and that's where you have to go into the next. That's how you're going into the next world.
But how did that happen? If they would gather a lot, they would lose it by the time they get
Yeah. So if you had some people that they would gather a lot, and by the time they came home, it was only an omer. And you had some people that gathered, less, and they were like, okay, and they came home and it miraculously expanded. There are different interpretations that some say that if they gather too much or too little, they had to go back and return it or get more. So they tried to make sure, but it took time to learn this lesson.
Checkers, that made them go back and bring it back.
If what?
How do they know someone took too much? They had to go bring
They have to. Let's say you have 5 people in your family, you get 5 omers per your family. If you took too little, you have to go back and get more. So it's not like a checker. You just had to figure it out by yourself when you came home. An omer, whatever was the way that the measurement. It was like you're talking about what was we said 2 kilo or something along those lines. So. Oh, so we'll speak about what happens with the leftovers, if there are any leftovers. I don't know if you met any American child today, but they eat more than adults. So, but right, that's true. Back then. So back then, our grandparents, all I had was a pear for a week, and it was stale. Now, the way that it works really, the way that it works with Parnassah is that on Rosh Hashanah, God decrees how much money you're going to have. If you're supposed to have $150,000 that year, then you're going to make $150,000 that year. No more, no less. Now what happens, let's say somebody's very aggressive. He's going to go, and he's going to go, and he's going to swindle, he's going to cheat, he's going to somehow make $300,000. Is that possible? Can that person who was decreed on Rosh Hashanah to make $150,000, can that person make $300,000?
Yes, but who loses?
Oh, very good. Excellent. Right on the target. They could make that $300,000, but they're not going to gain anything from the extra $150,000. They're going to end up making some investment, and they're going to end up losing it. They're going to end up going to some medical, whatever it's going to go, whatever. God has many ways, many messengers, and whatever it is, it's going to go. At the end of the day, you're supposed to get whatever it is that you want to get. Your main tafkid, your main goal in life is spirituality. You have other things that you need to do. You need to work, yes. You need to do a lot of other things. You need to study school. There's a whole slew of things you need to do. But if your focus in life is on the spirituality, you have to, on the physicality, on the monetary gains, you have to realize whatever you're supposed to make, you're going to make. Regardless of how God is going to get it to you, you're going to open up your own business, you're going to work for somebody, God is going to take care of you, whatever it is that you're supposed to make. But if you don't focus on that, and if you focus on your spirituality, then you'll have more time to focus on spirituality. God will take care of that.
So why is it that, like, let's say, like, businessmen are richer than rabbis, for example?
First of all, depending on the rabbis that you know. I know plenty of rabbis that are very, very wealthy.
Okay, like the average like rabbi who teaches like
I know what you're talking about, and I know who you're talking about.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah. But you know what? They do good things with their money. I know personally. So I won't say it on camera, but I'll say it off camera. I won't say it on camera, but I'll say it. I'll say it off camera. Am I right? Is that what you're referring to?
I don't know.
Okay. So stop being so nosy. Okay. So
I don't know them anyway.
so anyways, so now. So, okay.
He's talking about the community. I know that he knows women.
Yes. So I am talking about the community that you know.
I don't know.
Okay, so now there is when the people went to collect the man, who went to collect the man? The head of the household went to collect the man. Not the children, not the wives, only the head of the household. Why only the head of the household? So number one, because if food comes from heaven, and the children don't really have to rely on the parents. They could say, listen, God is going to take care of us, going to rely, everything is on that. So there will be a decrease possibly in the kibud avim, in the honoring of your parents. So God said, no. Only the head of the household, that's the person that's going to go around and collect the money, collect the man, because this way the children still have to honor it, and there's still going to be a kibud avim, there's still going to be more of an incentive to do a kibud avim. The additional reason is that women, for example, would not go out to collect because it would be immodest for women to mingle with the men that are collecting the omer. Now, when you collect the omer, you're only allowed to collect for your family. You're not allowed to collect. You'll be like, oh, listen, I got you today. We'll like carpool, right? So we'll carpool a car omer, right? Omer pool, whatever. You do. Oh, there we go. Omer pool bar. Oh, what was we were talking about? Okay, Uber pool, right? Okay, fine. So we listen. We'll collect Sunday. You do Monday. You do Tuesday. You do Wednesday, and we all relax. No. Everybody has to collect every single day for their own things. You can't collect for another family. You cannot collect more and then sell it to another family. You could collect it, and you can only do one thing. You can only eat for it. Now, there was a rule that we mentioned many times already, that there was an omer per person. And this solved many mysteries. For example, I'll give 3 examples. Number 1, if there was a slave, and the slave goes over to the head person, to the judge, the rabbi, and he says, listen, I'm no longer a slave. He says, this guy freed me, my owner freed me, and I should not be a slave anymore. And the owner comes in and be like, hey, listen, I have a document that's saying that I did it, that I bought you. Would you have a document that I freed you? And what would the judge say? He'd be like, listen, let's wait. Let's see what happens with the man tomorrow. If the man falls in the property or in the designation of the owner, then we know the slave belongs to the owner. For example, let me make it a little bit clear. Let's say this family has 5 people in the family. So the next day, the judge goes to the person and says, how many omer measures did you have for yesterday? He says 5 for my family. He says, what about 6 for your slave? If he didn't have a 6th one for his slave, that means the slave went free. If he did have a 6th one, that means the slave didn't go free.
Would it automatically have a 6 omer?
Would you automatically have it?
Or he had to collect it.
says he collected 5.
Regardless of whatever you collected, more or less, you ended up with the same amount.
He would have had a 6.
He would have had, if you would have collected, he would have ended up having 6, according to the consensus. So there was another one. If let's say people were in question regarding the paternity of a child. So if let's say a woman, now we have an halakha. And by the way, this was before the Torah was given. We have a halakha. If a woman gets divorced, she has to wait a certain amount of time before she gets remarried again. Anybody know how long? 3 months. Very good. Why 3 months? In case you're pregnant. So by 3 months, you know if a woman is pregnant or not. So this way you know if it's the first husband or the second husband that's the father of the child. But let's say before the Torah was given, let's say there was a woman that went and was married, was divorced, and then get married again very short time afterwards. The question is, who's the father of this child? So they would wait to see where the Omer would fall. If the Omer would fall in the first child's parents, then the father, then we know it belongs to that. If the Omer would fall in the second, then we know it belongs to that. There was also another solution that happened. If let's say a man and a woman had an argument, and the argument escalated, the woman left and went to her father's house. So in order to see who was correct in the situation, let's see where the Omer fell. If the man if the man went into the father's, so the wife's father's house, we know that the wife is right. But if the man fell in the husband's house, we know the husband's right. So this solution of like one Omer per family was able to resolve many mysteries that people had, many questions that people had. So now the question is, let's say somebody didn't want to eat so much. Let's say someone didn't want to eat Omer. He's used to fasting, he's on a dieting regimen, just left Egypt, they ate a lot of matzah. You know how it works after Pesach, right? Yes. You're talking about a Pesach of a few hundred years, right? So they want to go on a diet. Right, listen, maybe they don't want to eat so much man. Maybe they want to relax a little bit, even though there was, man was a spiritual food. There was not something that, there was no, the body didn't really have to go to the bathroom after the man. But they went and they decided they didn't want to eat so much. So what that person was able to do is that person wasn't required to eat a full Omer amount. What he would either do, if there would be any leftover, he would throw it into the river. There was a river that from all the melted man, from all the extra man, there was a river that ran through the camps. They would be able to throw the extra man over there. Or if they wanted to, they could give it to the lazy people that woke up very late by the time all the man melted and they didn't have any man left over. So they were able to go and give it to them if they so wished to do. But they were not able to leave over any man for the next day. So this law of not leaving man to the next day was obeyed by most people. There was a select few. Some of them are some of them is the infamous, troublemakers, Dasan and Aviram. They left over. But was something very interesting. The Jewish woman, without a exception, every single one of them followed this rule. They did not go and leave over any single man. The Jewish woman, time and time again, proved to God, proved to the Jewish nation, they're the ones that are upholding the Torah. They're the ones that don't bend over. Power to the woman, right?
Oh.
Gotta bring that back though. History is nice, but you gotta repeat itself. So, happens to be that the Mashiach is gonna come and marry of the woman.
I don't know what it knows, that just comes on a random Thursday night to just...
That is true. Because of the woman, Mashiach is going to come. That's listen, you're both women. So the women were known to help bring the Geulah, and they will be known to bring the Geulah. It's nice, but you have a lot on your head. It's all on you. You got to make sure. Like, come on, guys. I've been waiting for a long time for Mashiach. Where is Mashiach? Now what are you going to say? The men's got to take out the garbage. Equal rights, but the men's got to take out the garbage. The men's got to pay for dates. Equal rights! When I want it. Selective equal rights. Okay, so, what is it called? Selective hearing? Okay. But in any case, the truth is the women do have a tremendous amount of power, and this is why they raise it. There's a tremendous amount of influence that the women have over any other man, child, human, etc. Okay, so going back. So now the Datan and Aviram went, and they decided that they're going to leave over the man. Now, they made it a very public display that they're going to leave over the man. They opened up their pantry doors and their tents, and however that worked, right? I don't know if it was this. I don't think they had hinges back then. But they went and they opened up and they said, look, we're leaving over the man till the next day. The next day, what happened? the man was filled with maggots and flies, and there were worms, huge worms that they were so big that they came to eat the man that it caused a vibration on the floor. Now, if you understand the size of these worms have to be, because worms don't jump. You ever seen a worm like after a rainy day? I don't know how to explain this. They do this thingy? Right? They're not even like snakes. Snakes slither. They don't slither. They you know.
So they did it like, but they were snake.
They were so that they vibrated. That's how big that they were to go and destroy. Lesson that you learn time and time again: don't test God. If God tell you don't do this, don't be one of those people. Be like, no. What about if I'm going to do this? You know, does God really care? God, I have a connection with God. God knows me. You know, like I could totally not keep Shabbat. Relax. Don't question God. You know, learn history. One thing that you do not do is you do not question God. But they went and they left it over, and the worms came and destroyed the entire. You know, they ate all the man. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu, that next morning, was supposed to teach the Jewish people about the laws governing the man for Shabbat. What was the laws that you supposed to, on Friday it's supposed to be double, and you collect double, and whatever. There's a whole laws that Moshe Rabbeinu had to do. But now when Moshe Rabbeinu went and he saw all these fruit flies, all the rotten man, he got furious, he got angry. He said, "Are you serious?" He's like, "How long do you have to test God? How many times, time and time again, do you have to go and test God? You failed miserably. Look what God told you, do not leave the vote over, and you left it over. Do you not have any faith in Him?" So, because Moshe Rabbeinu was so overcome by the pain, he was like, this is food from heaven. And you went and you caused it to be defiled by worms, you caused it to be defiled by maggots and flies because you decided that you know better. And he was so upset, so angry that it slipped his radar to go and start speaking about the halachot for Shabbat for man. So he didn't end up speaking about it. And Laws brings down that there is a tradition that if somebody goes and loses his temper, if he is wise, he will lose his wisdom. If he's a prophet, he will lose his prophecy. When somebody loses their temper, they lose themselves. They're not themselves anymore, and they lose what they had as well.
Are they not supposed to get angry?
No, you're not supposed to get angry. Where is there a time in the Torah that there was an okay time? I'm going to give it up, but to get zealous. What?
Someone killed somebody, no?
Pinchas said zealous. Right, it wasn't angry, but it doesn't say that he got angry. It was zealous. It was yeah. It was how do you say it in English though?
In general.
Zealous. Thank you, zealous.
Like anger. I feel like Hashem wouldn't want us to let's say repress things.
So I'll get you in a second.
It's not healthy if you just keep it all inside.
So this is a good question. So before
always wondering.
okay, before I answer your question,
I do that and it's not.
okay. So before I answer your question was how did Moshe Rabbeinu kill an Egyptian?
Yeah.
Okay.
With Dasan?
It was with Dasan and Aviram. Yeah. It was. So what happened was with Moshe Rabbeinu, and then I will get to your question, and then possibly we'll finish our subject sometime midnight. So. It's the first time that I had a question from Hollywood. So Moshe Rabbeinu did go and kill an Egyptian. Now, what did he do to kill it? What was the whole purpose? Why did he get angry? What was the understanding behind killing the Egyptians? So Moshe Rabbeinu goes out to go, and by the way, this is how Moshe Rabbeinu was introduced to the Jewish nation. Is he went and he killed a Mitzri. When he went out, he goes out and he sees on his first day out in the field in the Jew, he sees an Egyptian about to hit a Jew. Now, why did the Egyptian about to hit a Jew? Does anybody know the backstory behind this?
Because that's his wife.
Very good. Oh, excellent. So there was this Egyptian went, and the Jews had to wake up very early in the morning. And one Egyptian was very fond of another Jewish person's wife. So he called the Jew out early in the morning, and then he went back into the house as, I guess, under the disguise of being still the Jew, to be intimate with this Jewish person's wife. So when this person, when the Jew found out, he confronted the Egyptian. And this is where Moshe Rabbeinu comes in, and he sees this scene. He says the scene where a Jew is about to, where an Egyptian is about to hit a Jew. Now, what did Moshe Rabbeinu do? Moshe Rabbeinu, it says in the pasuk, he looked back and forth. He looked left and right. He looked, and then he saw no one was there, and he went and he killed the Egyptian. What does it mean that he looked back and forth? What was he looking for? It wasn't that he was looking back and forth to see that he was a prince. If he wanted it, he was able to do. But what was he really looking for? What he was looking for was to see, and through Ruach HaKodesh, through prophecy, to see is anybody good going to come out of this Egyptian? Maybe there's a great grandchild that's going to be someone good that comes out of here. Now, what am I asking like that? Let's say somebody had the opportunity to murder Hitler when he was a baby. Would you say that would be humanistically correct?
No.
You would say it wouldn't be correct.
No, because I think like one of like his relatives is Jewish now. I think I heard that.
Hitler's relatives?
I would kill one.
Well, most people would say, yeah, I will murder that baby. There's like very few instances where you could say you'll murder a baby and people would be like, yeah, that sounds about right. And I'm not talking about the liberal, pro-abortion, what is that called? It's not pro-life, what is the other one? Pro-choice? I love it how it said pro-choice, so it's pro-death. Pro-life, pro-death. No, pro-choice, no, not that, yeah. Pro-terrorist or normal. No, it's normal and not normal. Stop changing it to make it sound better. You're murdering a child inside a woman's womb. If you ever seen how abortion is done, they chop it up and then they suction it out and then they put the pieces back together again, right? And this is not a story about Humpty Dumpty. This is a story about a human life that's inside over there. But not speaking about abortion, but when you have that, when you go and somebody has that, why would that be okay all of a sudden to go and murder this? Because all the troubles that came out of it. So Moshe Rabbeinu, but before he went and he murdered this Egyptian, he went and he said, is there anything good that's going to come out of him? Anything, his children, his grandchildren, his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren. He saw nothing as good as going to come out of him. So he saw that under his, circumstances, and what he did was correct. He went and he killed this Egyptian. He saved this Jewish person's life. And there's a few other, things that we could plug into play over here. If let's say somebody's going to go and murder, you have a, being that we spoke about, Hitler. Let's say speak about the Holocaust. Let's say you have somebody that's going and paint this scenario. There's a Nazi. What? Before we even kill one to say many. There's a Nazi officer out in the woods. There's a Jewish person on their knees. The Nazi officer has a revolver pointed on the Jewish person's head. You are an amazing sniper, and you have a gun pointed at the Nazi. Are you allowed to go and kill this Nazi?
Yes.
I would, yeah.
You would?
Yes.
So all of a sudden, what we see over here is we're painting the same scenario. We're just painting it in a different light that we kind of understand it more. Our questions sort of fade away. So when Moshe Rabbeinu went and killed this Egyptian that was going to do who knows what to the Jew, all of a sudden, maybe what he did was right. And what he did was right. But now we have to answer your question. Yeah. Your question is, what do you do when you're angry? If you're really angry, it's not good to keep it inside, because then what happens? Nuclear, right? Eventually you get angry, you keep it inside, and then it's like, it's like a balloon. You keep on blowing it up, and eventually it's all inside. The air is all inside. But then you just blow one little too much, and then everything goes and explodes. So is it better when you're angry to withhold anger and keep it to yourself, or is it better to go and let it out? So there is a room, I don't know if it's still in business anymore, but there was a thing in Manhattan that they had something known as I don't know if this is the name of it, but it was known as like a scream room, where you could go into this padded room, most likely meant for mentally disabled people, and you would be able to scream as much as you want. So if you had a hard day at work, you go into the scream room, and then you just let it out. And you take the lamp over there, and you throw it against the wall, right? And then you just destroy and scream and become like a scary gorilla.
It's healthy, though.
If you're feeding
otherwise,
the
no. To get it out.
Oh, you can scream, but not to throw.
So let's try to understand. So
if no one's there.
So psychologically speaking, they thought, listen, you're like what you said. It's better to let it all out than to
let it out like a bit. I'm saying, not like keep it all like in and just like be like, no, I'm fine.
There's some people could let out, but let's say someone's really angry. Is there ever a time that you could smash a lamp?
No.
Is there ever a time that you should scream? Very good. So this is not a class about anger, but there's a lot that we could speak about anger. But when you go and you scream and you let it out, people think, okay, at least I'm letting it out. That's not letting it out. Dealing with anger is not dealing with anger the way that your emotions are dealing with anger. Dealing with anger is dealing with it intellectually, not emotionally. When people scream, when people get angry, that's dealing with something emotionally and not intellectually. You want to deal with anger? You're right. You don't want to blow up, but you know how to deal with it intellectually. Intellectually, you don't scream, you don't get riled up. You think about it. You bring yourself down. You put everything in perspective. That's dealing with anger in the healthy way. Anything other than that is emotionally unstable, is emotionally unhealthy. It's feeding into your desires. It's feeding into your anger. What's going to happen next time? If you go to this anger room, to the scream room, and you go and you destroy the room.
There are certain things though that are very traumatizing, and a person gets very angry. You can't just think about it and be fine.
So for some people, they need to take medication. Not drugs, they need to take medication. Not alcohol, they need to take medication. But for other people in the moment, no, you're right. For other people in the moment, they need to go and take a walk.
Yeah.
And now deal with something.
Get it out somehow.
Taking a walk is different than throwing something.
Getting it out
I'm
is.
not saying
is not.
It's not getting it out, it's calming down.
Let's say
Okay, we'll have to give a class about this sometime.
Sorry.
No problem. But
Just
we're not halfway through, and we're already time over.
you're
What?
on your own and just being I can't take it, and you just pound your pillow and be done with it.
No, actually, no, we did not. Yeah. So okay. So now let's try to go through this. Let's try to go through this thing. Okay, it's getting late. Let's do it. I'm more than happy to answer questions, but let's leave it till the end of the class, and then we'll answer all the questions. So from now till the end of the class. Class. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. So, okay, fine. I didn't realize how late it was. It's amazing. Okay, so when you're learning Torah, you're having fun. Time flies. It's awesome. You're enjoying it. It's great. You don't even realize it. Okay, so Friday comes. Moshe Rabbeinu was supposed to go and speak about the man. The man, came. The days came and went. He got angry. It slipped his radar, and he didn't speak about it. Friday morning, the time has come that the double portion of man fell, but Moshe Rabbeinu didn't speak about it to the Jewish people. So the Jewish people come, and they see that more man fell today than every other day. And they also realize that after the 4th hour, the man didn't melt. There was so much more man left over. So they had a question. They said, what's up with all this increase of man? So they went over to Moshe Rabbeinu and said, Moshe Rabbeinu, what's up with all this man? So Moshe Rabbeinu, really, I should have told you this before, but because of the anger that I had with Dasan and Aviran and their crew, the laws are that on Friday there was going to be a double portion of man that's going to fall. Shabbat, no man is going to fall. You're going to save over the man from Friday to Shabbat, and don't worry, it's not going to spoil. You're not going to have worms. You're not going to have anything. The Shabbat is going to go and protect it. So that's what happened Friday. The Jewish people realized that they have to collect double. They collected double, and the next day was Shabbat. Now Shabbat, Dasan and Aviran decided, you know what? Let's try to see what we are able to do, and they came with a plan. The conniving troublemakers came up with a plan. What did they say? They said, listen, let's save over some extra man. Let's call some of our friends. Moshe Rabbeinu said that on Shabbat, no man is going to fall down. We're going to go into the fields late Friday night and plant our man out in the fields. So when the Jewish people wake up, they're going to go in the fields, they're going to see the man, we're going to show Moshe Rabbeinu is wrong, and we're going to win whatever it is that they were going to win. Let's go deal with everything afterwards. And they were and everybody's going to laugh at Moshe Rabbeinu. And everybody, you think about it for a second. What was up with Dasan and Aviran? What was their goal? Dark, twisted minds. If you look at it, most of the time, they didn't have a problem with God. They had a problem with Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what they had a problem with. The problem is they wanted to deny the fact of the son of God. They didn't die in the plague of darkness. They lasted all the way until Korach. It was a different question inside it. After. So they went and they were able to last until the Korach. So they had something to them, but yet they were always against Moshe Rabbeinu. They always tried to undermine him. You have this, unfortunately nowadays, certain type of people that they go. I deal in the Kiruv world, so I see this a lot, where you have, people go and they bash certain Kiruv techniques, certain Kiruv rabbis. They don't know what they're doing. This person, they didn't even call him a rabbi, Mr. this person. I'm not going to indulge them in saying that, who these people speak about. And the first question that when people, sometimes I get these questions presented to me, and I'm like, oh, so you're in the cure field, so you must know, because you're against this technique, so you must know the techniques, right, because you're in the field. They're like, no, I'm not in the cure world. I'm like, do you teach Torah? Do you know anything about anything? Like, can you give me something? They're like, no, we don't do anything. So let me get this straight. So you have a problem with this technician, with his technique, but you're not in the field. So you're like one of those Yelp reviewers that has no idea what's going on, but you decide, you know what? For some reason, I have 16 hours of my time. I'm going to write a 16-page review on how rude they were to my, whatever. Like, really? Like, that's who you're arguing about? You know nothing about it, the field. Then why are you going and complaining and arguing and saying, no, this thing is wrong? And people have this specialty. There's some people that specialty is kiruf. Some people have specialty in learning Torah. People have the specialties in every area. If there's a kiruf rabbi that has their techniques and they're doing it, there's a reason why they're doing it. They're in the field. Stop arguing with them when you're not in the field. If you're in the field, then fine, then you argue with them. But if you're not in the field, don't you dare open your mouth. How do you know what you have? Don't be a Dasan and Aviran trying to cause problems without having any solution. There are certain people who just want to cause problems. Cause their names, cause bad names on other rabbis, cause bad publicity on other people for absolutely no reason whatsoever. They don't get anything from it.
They're bored.
If you're not coming with a solution, if you're not in the safety field, then keep your mouth shut. Keep your little typing fingers to yourself, because it's going to save you from the next world. You don't realize what people go through, and people fall into the worst level of Gehenom for the bad mouthing that they have on people that do God's work. People fall to such an extent that people don't realize how far they're fallen, and they think that they're right. That's the biggest kicker. They think, you know what? No, I am the righteous man over here. Mashiach has come. They think they're coming straight to them. Thank you for uncovering all this hideous activity that's going on in the Jewish nation. The last person that Mashiach is coming is to you. I'll tell you that much. The secular people, Mashiach is going to come before the people that bash against the rabbis. Before the people that bash against the people that are trying to go and serve God. People are so confused nowadays.
Yes.
And now we look at it and be like, maybe they're right, maybe they're not. We look at Dasan and Aviran. Back now, we look at them and be like, how could they be so foolish? Are you serious? Like, how could they do that? But yet we have people that do the same thing nowadays, and we're like, well, maybe, I don't know. Like, let's read other reviews and other things. Like, let's read that. We're in the same trap today because we don't see what happened 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. You have to learn from history. If you don't learn from history, history is going to repeat itself. Regardless of whatever, history repeats itself. If you learn from it, you'll be able to, stand in the front of the lines. If you don't learn from it, you're going to keep on falling down the same way that that history has taught us that people fell down. So, the son of Iran went and they want to undermine Moshe Rabbeinu. So they went that night and they scattered man all over the fields. The next morning, the Jewish people woke up. They were very happy. Their man that they saved over from the night before did not spoil, did not rot. There was no worms that were vibrating the earth. They were very, very happy. But then they had some questions. They were like, what are we allowed to do today? We're not allowed to cook. We're not allowed to clean. Like, what are we allowed to do? So they went over to Moshe Rabbeinu to try to get some clarification. And Moshe answered all the questions that they asked. There's not going to be any man on Shabbat. We don't care. We don't collect on Shabbat. Don't worry about it. And after they asked, and Moshe Rabbeinu answered all the questions, they left Moshe Rabbeinu. As they left Moshe Rabbeinu, the son and Aviran are walking towards them, and they're like, "Hey, where's everyone going?" And they're like, "Well, we just came from Moshe Rabbeinu. We had all our questions. Now we're going back to our tents. We got all our questions answered." Be like, "Well, aren't you guys going in the wrong directions? We got to go collect the man." You see the type of people the son of Aviran was because they had to go collect the man. We know the righteous people didn't have to go collect them on. They come on and collect over there. So they're like, I don't know. So which are the people that came and asked Moshe Rabbeinu questions? I don't know. I'm not saying anything, but you read into some things. It's very interesting to come into certain conclusions.
People that were asking were the ones that needed to.
I'm not saying that they were asking that they needed to, but it's something that you need to put into perspective. There are certain people. I'm only learning it from nowadays. Nowadays, you have certain people that question everything the rabbis say. Question everything they say. If you don't want it, stop coming and asking the question. You're going to question everything they say. There's some people that question everything. Oh, but he said this, but he doesn't really know. Blah, 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 blah. All the nonsense that spew out of people's mouth. Is there no question still?
I do have a question. Who did even fall doesn't appear thing anyway? Like, wasn't it like a huge pile of mud and doesn't appear only have...
Let's leave it for afterwards. We're going to answer that part. So, Dasan and Aviran, whatever they had, they left over, even though it wasn't a lot. They wanted to undermine Moshe Rabbeinu. So they wanted to go and show, hey, listen, if there's even a little speck of something that undermines, Moshe Rabbeinu said no man is supposed to fall on Shabbat. If they find even a little bit, that already, undermines Moshe Rabbeinu. So the son of Iran are walking, and people are walking towards him, and they say, hey, listen, where are you guys going? He says, we're going back. He says, no, we got to go collect the man. They say, listen, we just spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu says, we don't got to go collect the man. And Shabbat, no man falls out. So the son of Iran says, hey, listen, they're one of these things. They want to, between you and me, maybe he starts speaking Italian, maybe not, I don't know. Between you and me, listen, from reliable sources, I heard, that there's going to be some man out in the field. Maybe we should go and check it out, I'm just saying, maybe we should check it out, So, the son of Iran got people's minds curious, and they were like, well, maybe we should check it out. Maybe there's something we should check out. So they decided they're going to go, and they're going to check out the man. So they went to go and check out the... So the son Beran is collecting the crowd, and everyone's going out to the fields, and they're like, "We got him." What is that evil laugh? Right? They're like, "Now we got Moshe Rabbeinu." And they're going to go out there, and there's going to be man, and they're going to win, and who knows what happens going to. I don't know what the plan was. So they go out into the fields where they placed all the man just a few hours earlier, and they look around, and guess what they see? Nothing, nada. There's not a single scrap of man. And the son of Iran are looking around and be like, I promise you, somebody told me there was going to be out of here. Look at that. There must be something over here, and there's nothing. There's nothing. So the son of Iran says, I don't understand. We just had everything over here. We just had all the man. And one of them looked up, and they saw in the beak of the birds, there was some man that was, still, the birds came and they ate it. There's one interpretation by Parshat Shirah, why we feed the birds on Shabbat. This is one of the reasons why we feed the birds on Shabbat, because the son of Iran wanted to go, and one... For Parashat Shirah, we go and leave out food for the day before. No, beforehand. Yeah. So because whatever, there's different reasons why we do that on Shabbat Shirah. But one of the reasons was because the birds went and ate all the man that the son of Iran placed to show, because the son of Iran wanted to undermine Moshe Rabbeinu, and the birds came and they ate everything up. So we show as a hakarat hatov, as a gratitude to the birds, we go and feed them on that day. Some people feed them, on every single day. Those people you could tell because they have bird poop all over their front. But no, it's very nice. It's very good that they do that. What? There's a person on my block that does it every single time. There's a little tree over there that I always know that I have to walk around the tree. Now it's great. It's a great thing if you want to feed the birds. That's amazing. You feed God's creatures. That's awesome. You know what happens when you feed a cat once, right?
Yeah, it always comes back to you.
You feed it for life. Yeah. So they say this about certain tzedakah collectors, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Mitzvah go out mitzvah. You got to think about the positive. You think about one. Sometimes if you want to give charity, you have to run around to find somebody to give charity to. Here you give once. Mitzvah go out mitzvah. He's very meticulous at some charity collectors. Mitzvah go out mitzvah every year. I'm going to come back to you. Make sure that you pay. You got to always look at the positive. So now, the son of Iran went and they caused so many people to go out in there. Now, because they caused people to go out there, they made people desecrate the Shabbat. They were trying to undermine Moshe Rabbeinu, but they ended up desecrating the Shabbat. And in fact, if the Jewish people would have kept that Shabbat flawlessly, then they would have been immune to the persecution of the non-Jewish nations. They would have been immune. If they would have kept 2 Shabbats consecutively, we'll see why the reason was, but that's one of them. If the Jewish people would have kept 2 Shabbat consecutively, the redemption would have come. The Mashiach would have come already. So now, the day went on, and the Jewish people were starting to get nervous. But wait a minute, there was no man that fell today. What about tomorrow? What about Sunday? We're going to still have food. So Moshe Rabbeinu went to them and said, listen, it says today that that the man is not going to fall because today is Shabbat. But tomorrow is Sunday. Tomorrow you're going to have the continuous of man. And Moshe Rabbeinu warned them, make sure you don't leave over any man that's left over from Shabbat till tomorrow, because just like it was okay to leave over from Friday to Shabbat, it's not okay to leave over from Shabbat till Sunday. So there's midrashim that bring out very interesting ideas during this, in this little section of the Torah, that the pasuk where it says that they have to eat it, they have to eat the man today and not leave any man over for tomorrow because today is Shabbat. In that pasuk it says today, it says hayom 3 times. This is alluding to the 3 meals that you must be eaten on Shabbat. You have 1 in the night and 2 during the day. Now, Our sages tell us that if somebody goes and is meticulous in keeping the 3 Shabbat meals, he's spared from, or she is spared from 3 major catastrophes. Number 1 is the Milchamet Gog uMagog. Number 2 is the birth pangs of Mashiach, is the Chevle Mashiach. And number 3 is from the great day of judgment, which follows afterwards with something that is known as purgatory. Let's use that word. Yeah. So
meaning after like we die?
Yeah. So in the time of Mashiach, yeah. So the Maimonides brings down the first meal on Friday night. You should have in mind this is the merit of Yitzchak. That in merit of the Friday night meal, in merit of Yitzchak, you're going to be, and you eat it, you do everything, which we're going to speak about, how you're supposed to do it. You're going to do it correctly. You're going to be safe from the birth pangs of Mashiach. The second meal, which is a Shabbat morning, you're supposed to have in mind Avraham Avinu's merit. And because of that, you're going to be spared from the punishment of Gehenna after the great day of the judgment. The third meal is the merit of Yaakov Avinu, and you're going to be saved from the merit of of the suffering of Gog uMagog. Now, when you eat the meals, how are you supposed to eat the meals? You're supposed to eat it with joy, peace, happiness, love. You're not supposed to be with anger, not thinking about business, not thinking about anything else, not only about Shabbat, and only happiness and shalom that goes on in there. Now, if you do, then the first meal, you eat it with happiness, joy, and you have the correct Oneg Shabbat. You learn Torah during the meals, you don't speak, whatever, everything you do correctly. Then the first meal is going to bless you for Sunday and Monday. The second meal, which is Shabbat day, is going to bless you for Tuesday and Wednesday. The third meal is going to bless you for Thursday and Friday. So the 3 meals of Shabbat correspond to each day of the week. That's going to give you a blessing for that day of the, from that day of the week. Now, what happens if you don't and you neglect on the 3 Shabbat meals? So you're supposed to have an oneg on Shabbat. Now, if you're neglecting on the Shabbat meals, then you're going to go oneg backwards is nega, or not backwards, and mix it. Nega is what? Is a plague, is affliction. You're going to be afflicted with disease and sickness if you don't keep the oneg of Shabbat. While we're speaking about this, just a good idea. We spoke about last week regarding the lechem mishneh. We should have, if we didn't have, we should have. That's it. But when you have lechem mishneh, what challah are you supposed to cut? The top one or the bottom one?
Top one.
Depends. So it's based on Kabbalistic interpretation. The Friday night you cut from the bottom one. The Shabbat day and Shabbat Sudash you do from the top one. Obviously you do not everybody knows this. The one that you're cutting should be the one that's protruding also. It should be closer to you. So, in any case, after the Jewish people went and they desecrated the Shabbat because of the son of Ilan and because of their posse that they brought along, Hashem went and Hashem rebuked them. He rebuked Moshe Rabbeinu and he rebuked the Jewish people. Now Moshe Rabbeinu, what did he do wrong? He didn't desecrate the Shabbat, but because he had some sort of responsibility of it, also because Kol Yisrael Aravim Zelazeh, every Jewish person is connected to another person. So because of that, Moshe Rabbeinu was also rebuked for not keeping, for the desecration of Shabbat. Now when God went and admonished and gave rebuke, gave criticism to the Jewish people on Shabbat, he did it in a not generalizing way, in a more openly way, not to embarrass the particular people that went and they caused the desecration of Shabbat. The Midrash brings down that Rabbi Yehuda Anasi was teaching in class. Rabbi Yehuda Anasi was very, very meticulous. He couldn't stand garlic breath. If somebody had garlic, you should not go to his class. But there was one time that he was giving a class and somebody ate garlic and it smelled really bad. And he said, somebody here ate garlic. So the person that ate garlic, please get up and leave. Garlic, if you ever have garlic, if you ever realize garlic has such a power that if you eat enough garlic, your sweat smells of garlic. Right? So if you eat a lot of garlic bread, I'm just kidding. If you eat a lot of garlic, I see no one ate garlic bread. So if you eat a lot of garlic, you actually smell of it. So Rabbi Yehuda Anasi says, whoever ate garlic, please get up and get out. It was too disturbing. So Rabbi Chia got up and he left. What happened was one by one, every student got up and left after Rabbi Chia. So the next day, Rabbi Yehuda's son, which his name was Rabbi Shimon, goes over to Rabbi Chia and he says, I don't understand, why did you eat garlic? He was the first person that stood up. He says, why did you eat garlic? You know that my father, the Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he cannot stand garlic, the smell. Like, why would you eat garlic and go to class? He says, Chas v'shalom, you think I ate garlic? He said, I didn't eat garlic. He said, but what would happen if the person that ate garlic would have to stand up and he would have to leave? He said, that's very embarrassing for that person. Maybe he forgot, maybe he didn't know. He says, you know what, I'll take it on myself. He stood up, big Rabbi Chia stood up and he left. And what the students were very smart students. They saw the rabbi leave, they realized so they all stood up. So eventually the guy that ate garlic also stood up, but he didn't get embarrassed. Now, where did he learn it from? He learned it from Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Chia learned it from Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir, there is a way that you can get married through intercourse. It's not, the most appropriate thing to do because of the associations and involved with it, but you are halachically able to get married through intercourse. So one woman came into Rabbi Meir's academy, and he said, somebody here married me through intercourse, and and she doesn't remember who it was. So Rabbi Meir got up, wrote her a bill of divorce, a get, and he gave it to her. And then the students saw that, so they all wrote a bill of divorce. Every student in the academy wrote a get, and he gave it to her. Why did they give it to her? Because they didn't want that the one person that did something that, even though halachically was okay, but it was not in the right eyes, shouldn't have done it, he would have been embarrassed that he was the one he had to write a bill of divorce. So everybody wrote a get just to not embarrass that that person that did it. Where did Rabbi Meir learn it from? Rabbi Meir went and he learned it from Shmuel. What happened with Shmuel? By the way, it goes on. But because it's late, I'm not going to go on. Rabbi Shmuel, there's a few. Where does it all go back to? He learned it from this rabbi. I learned it from this rabbi. I learned it from Moshe Rabbeinu. I learned it from God. It all came from from that thing that when you go and you admonish people and you give people a rebuke, it's better not to embarrass people. Give it in a general idea, unless you're speaking to somebody one-on-one and you need to give the rebuke. But in general, you don't want to embarrass people in public. And that is a lesson that we learn from here. So Hashem goes to the Moshe Rabbeinu, goes to the Jewish people. He says, listen, he says, guys, I gave you 2 prohibitions, 2 isurim minad. Do not leave over any man, and do not go collect any man on Shabbat. Both of those things you messed up. Both of those things you violated. You violated the 2 commandments that I told you do not do. He says, if you cannot hold on to these, how are you supposed to hold on to the whole Torah? How are you going to do that? And he says, don't you understand the merit of Shabbat? How important it is Shabbat? Shabbat, because of the merit of Shabbat, the Midrashim tell us that there are 3 things that came in the merit of Shabbat. Number 1, the 3 festivals. You have Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot came in the merit of Shabbat. Number 2, the land of Israel came in the merit of Shabbat. Olam Haba comes in the merit of Shabbat. He says, and you guys messed this up? Furthermore, says God says, all the miracles that I performed for you were in the merit of Shabbat. Moshe, and also God says that the keeping of Shabbat is comparable to keeping the Torah. People don't understand the importance of Shabbat. People don't understand the severity of Shabbat. So Hashem was giving the rebuke. Moshe Rabbeinu accepted the rebuke with humility, and he went to relay this information to the Jewish people. Now, people, for example, what was the sin of the Jewish people? So before we even speak about the specificities of the sin, we all know you're not allowed to carry. Unless you have a Eruv, you're not allowed to carry in Shabbat. But people are not so familiar, you're not allowed to walk out of the Tchum. You're not allowed to walk out of the encampment. So you have if after the encampment, after 2,000 amot, after the encampment, you're not allowed to go and you're not allowed to walk out of it. And if you do end up walking out of the encampment for whatever reason, you have to stay there until after Shabbat. You have 4 amot to walk in each direction, and after that you have to stay there until after Shabbat. So there was once, the Mamlaws brings down a story that there were brothers that came to a city, and what was their sin? They walked through the Tchum on Shabbat. They arrived Friday night, and the people realized that they walked through the Tchum on Shabbat. And it says over there all the terrible, they did it by accident. But what did the sages tell them they have to do? Number 1, you have to fast for 50 days straight consecutively. 50 days. That doesn't mean you don't.
One by accident.
One by accident Shabbat. So you fast for 50 days. You do a Muslim thingy plus 10 days. Ramadan, I think it's 40 days, no? Yeah. So for 30 days? Okay, 30 days. So time and a half, and then a little bit more. So they would have to go and they would have to fast for 50 days. Why 50 days? Because one of the punishments of desecrating the Shabbat is karet. What's karet? One of the punishments of Shabbat, which is karet, is that you die before the age of 50. So it says, you died. So now they have to go correspond to that. They fast for 58 days straight. They also have to give a lot of charity. Besides all that, they fasted for 3 days.
Wasn't it by accident though?
Yes, the man law is being done. This is all for by accident.
What? Really?
This is the importance of Shabbat. Now, what do you do nowadays? We're not talking about practical halachat lema'aseh for today. I'm not telling you what you need to do nowadays if you desecrate Shabbat, and this is what you need to do. I'm just telling you what it says in the Midrashim, straight out. But it was by accident. They fasted for 50 days. After that, they had to give a significant amount to charity. They also had to say they're not going to, obviously vow not to do it anymore. Be extra careful. They also had to fast for 3 days every month. So 3 days every month for 1 year. That's 3 times 12 is 36. Very good. 36 is why 36 fast, because there's 36 sins that are punishable by karet. corresponding to those things, they had to go and fast for 30 days. So there was a lot of things that they had to do just for a unintentional desecration of Shabbat. This is what we're dealing with Shabbat. People don't realize, go like, okay, whatever, I just watched a movie. Like, oh, I just, checked my phone. People don't realize the severity of Shabbat. People don't realize the importance of Shabbat. People don't realize the consequences that people have to deal with when desecrating the Shabbat. What was the sin that they did? So there was a few interpretations of what the sin the Jewish people did. Number one, they say that they carried the receptacles that when they had to go and collect the man. Number two is that they went and they touched things that were muksa, the things that were not. Give me. Okay, so I'm almost finished, and then we're going to go open up for questions. It's a little bit very late. Okay, so the other idea was that they went outside the Tchum. They went outside the encampment where they were supposed to walk on Shabbat. Regardless of whatever happened, Moshe Rabbeinu went and gave the rebuke, and the Jewish people accepted the rebuke as well. And they accepted it, and they were very, very meticulous on their Shabbat observance. Moshe Rabbeinu went, and he also told Aaron to go and keep a jar of man for safeguard keeping. Put a jar, and this jar is not going to spoil, it's not going to rot. In fact, it lasted 900 years later. In the time of Prophet Yirmiyahu, the Jewish people were not learning Torah. They had to say, listen, we have to go and work. So the Prophet Yirmiyahu brought out this jar of the man, and he said, listen, he says, look at the time of the man. The Jewish people, when the man, God took care of them, all they had to do is do whatever God wanted, and God sent them the man. The same lesson that you have for nowadays is that you just like back then, God took care of them when they did what they were supposed to do. So to you do what you're supposed to do, which is learning Torah, doing the mitzvah, doing things that you do. God is going to take care of your parnasah. So always you have to do ishtadlus. Ishtadlus shouldn't come on the hands of religious observance. Somebody doesn't, so somebody needs to do ishtadlus. Doesn't mean that they can't keep Shabbat because they have to open the store because that's when they make the most money. So the ishtadlus, of course, you have to work. Of course, you have to.
It's ends wherever it's cutting your spiritual.
Right. So obviously, for every particular person, speak to your local Orthodox rabbi, whatever. Obviously, find out what is the correct thing to do. But there's a line. There's a line where you don't cross, and there's a line where you can go up to the line. So obviously, to each their own. The whole concept of what's going on over here is that generally we're God's servants. The servant brings food for the master. But what did God do? God, the master, bought food for the servants to show you the level of how much God loved the Jewish people. The man lasted for 40 years until Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, which is on the 7th of Adar. Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. That's when the man stopped. One final thing I want to bring up, and then we'll deal with the questions, is some people say like the Bible critics go and they try to claim the man was a natural substance. It was in a desert, there was a bush, whatever it is that they go and people say that. Oh, if you would know the question that I asked, and you say, well, how do people, I ask that question time and time again. People ask this question. So there's a few answers to this. Number one, you go to the Sinai desert now. Is there any of this man left over? No, why not? If it's a natural substance that happened in that area, why is it not here anymore nowadays? Furthermore, if it was a natural substance, how was it that it was double every Friday? And how was it that it was never on Shabbat? How did that work out? How is that supposed to be natural? Furthermore, it only fell wherever the Israelis camped. So wherever the Israelis went over here, that's when it went. It went over here, it went over there. So how are you saying that it was that it came only as a natural substance? There are some people that ask questions on the Torah, they ask questions on Judaism, but the questions are so elementary. Not even elementary. They don't even know the elementary ideas in it. Because if you would understand the elementary foundations of the Torah, there was no question that could come up. There are, you say like, okay, listen, maybe it was a miraculous thing that happened, but people didn't realize it because whatever, some crazy thing. If there was a miracle that happened for 40 years straight, consecutively, you can't say that people were like in a different world. You can't say, if it happened so many times consecutively, you know that the people were seeing this, were in a straight mindset. They were not overwhelmed. They were dealing with this in a very, very straight mindset. And it was written in the Torah. And Moshe Rabbeinu gave the Torah to the Jewish people. If this was fake, the Jewish people would say, hey, wait a minute. This never happened. This is one of the strongest proofs that you have that the Torah, one of the many strongest proofs that you have in the Torah is legit. Look at the story of the man. You can't sell that to the Jewish people when you give them the Torah and be like, hey, this never happened. But if Moshe Rabbeinu said it happened for 40 years straight, without a break, except on Shabbat, all these particular things, an Omer measurement. There are so many miraculous things that happen over here. You want to go and you read the Torah and you say the Torah is not true, then you're lying to yourself. You're not doing justice. You're not searching for the truth. You're just searching for problems and for questions. Because if you really search for the truth, there is no answer that you could give to this. There's nothing that you could respond to these questions. You want to have questions? That's because you want to have questions. You're not looking for answers. But if you're looking for answers, you'll find out that the Torah answers everything. Everything is in Torah. Everything is in Torah.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.